We need to create the accountability chart for the direction we're going, not where we're at today. And then it's okay if Larry's name is in all 8 of the boxes for now. Our goal is to start getting Larry out of each box one at a time.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Law for Marketing Minute. As always, I'm your host, Smike, and today I am joined by Emily LaRusch of Back Office Betties. We have a great episode lined up today, especially since most of our audience is filled with small law firms, and at least on the marketing side, what we hear a lot is that they don't think that they can compete like the big firms, right? Because they're small. And luckily, we have Emily here today to share with you how exactly these small law firms can compete and how they can actually, as we said, they can get A players for their small law firm and for them. So very excited to have you. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Let's do this.
Yeah. Did you get any, real quick before you start, did you get any of that snow that just came through?
Yeah, I did. I walked outside, I saw it, it was cute, and I went back in until it went away.
Smart. Listen, me and my family, we moved down to North Carolina from New York to get away from the snow. And, we've only been here a few years. And of course, we get snow and it's just like, oh my gosh, just can't get away from it, no matter where you go, I guess.
Oh, it's wild. I'm in Texas, so of course the whole city shut down. It was like, oh man, we got an inch of snow coming. No, we can't function.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone forgets how to drive and whatnot. Anywho, very, very interested in learning about your story, basically your inspiration, your motivation to get to where you are. If you'd like to kind of talk about Back Office Betties a little bit as well to introduce that to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I always knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial since I was little, but I didn't go to college. There wasn't like anything that interested me enough, like go to school for engineering, go for nursing. Nothing could hold my attention long enough to get me to finish a program. So, I'm like, okay, I know I want to do some stuff. I know I want to do kind of my own thing, but I don't really have a skill set. And so I ended up working for law firms, working in real estate, working in underwriting and for big banks. And so it was while underwriting mortgage loans that I got the idea. I was on a quick break. I was working on a big project and I'm trying to line up services for my house and nobody's answering. And I was like, hey, I may not be a rocket engineer, but I do know how to answer a phone. And so I thought, okay, that's a novel idea. I had never even heard of a call or an answering service or anything like that. So fast forward a few years and we decided to do a little litmus test. And I would encourage everyone to do this test within your own firm is what type of clients appreciate our work the most? Who can we help the most? So number 1 is who can we grow and scale with? So what's best for the company? Number 2 is who does our team love serving the most? So what's best for our team? And then number 3 is who really values us? So who values the work that we're doing? So what's the best client match? And across the board, I asked my team and they came back with the attorneys. They were like, out of all the people we work with, those are who fit all 3 of those things. So we ended up niching our services for law firms about 8 years ago and haven't looked backwards. And so we kind of started off just in the call center space. And what having that niche has been able to help us do is to ask, well, what else is our client stressing about? What other things can we help them with? And so we've branched out into a lot of different ways, administrative wise, into providing paralegals or client services, managers, regular old virtual assistants, executive assistants. So kind of branching out into fractional administrative staffing, coming from just being a call center.
Oh, wow. So that's quite the journey there, the character arc, so to say, to get to where you are. That's awesome. And our audience, I'm sure you know this as well as anyone, our audience tends to sometimes believe that they have to do everything themselves, right? They have this idea that, hey, I went to law school to become a lawyer, and now I have a business. Oh, well, I just got to kind of do it myself. And I think what I at least hope that they get from this conversation, this episode, and what's really, needs to be said time after time is that they're not alone. We say it in our messaging, a lot is that, hey, listen, it's okay to reach out for help. It's just like as if you and I needed a lawyer. We would reach out for help from a lawyer. So it's about kind of figure out where all the puzzle pieces go and the right puzzle pieces. So very excited to get into this. When we spoke earlier in the preliminary call, you had mentioned that there's kind of like a whole process about going about finding the right A player for a small law firm. Before we dive into that process, could you just kind of outline like the steps, or at least the parts of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So step one is we need to figure out the accountability chart for your firm. And so, kind of going back to what you said, like whether you're the marketing company, we do services, or you're the lawyer running a firm, one thing we have in common is we're all trying to run a business. And the commonality and the great thing about that is they're pretty much in services going to be the same. So like kind of the chassis of the car is the same, whether it's, a BMW or like a hoopty, doesn't matter. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to start with the accountability chart, step one. Number two is we want to make sure we've got the right people in the right seats. And so we have a various different processes that we can do for that. And then number three is we want to create the experience of our people. And so whether that's the client, whether it's the internal user, whether it's a vendor, what kind of experience do we want to create for these people? And that's kind of the highest level 3 steps to getting the law firm really running smoothly and having everyone rowing in the same direction.
Awesome. So let's dive into the first step there. Accountability. You said accountability chart. When we going back to our call, when we discussed the accountability chart, the thing that I put down in my notes was what we need versus what we have right now. So can you kind of expand on what that means?
Yeah, definitely. So you've heard of org charts. Everyone's heard of them. It's kind of the hierarchical, list of positions. So if you're a law firm owner, and let's say you've got a part-time paralegal, and maybe you have a vendor like us answering your phone. So you have back office Betties answering your phones. So in essence, you've kind of got 2 employees filling those roles. Your org chart would look like receptionist, back office Betties. We'll call it Polly the paralegal, and then it would have the lawyer as CEO. So we'll call him Larry the lawyer. So the accountability chart is totally different. So what we're going to do is draw out everything Larry needs to be successful. So we're going to need a CEO. Under that, we're going to need a practicing attorney. Under the attorney, are we going to need a paralegal? Are we going to need a legal assistant or an executive assistant? Can Larry do all his work on his own and he just maybe needs help with his personal and professional appointments? Like, what is it Larry needs? What are those positions what's going to take us from where we are now to where we want to be in 12 months or even 3 years from now? So we're going to list out every one of those positions, and it's okay that we can't afford to fill them all. It's okay. We need to create the accountability chart for the direction we're going, not where we're at today. And then it's okay if Larry's name is in all 8 of the boxes for now. Our goal is to start getting Larry out of each box one at a time.
And almost like, in a way, it sounds like it almost like gamifies it, right? Like it's almost like I guess, if everything has an objective, then it's really considered like a game of some sort. But it gives it that essence where it's like, okay, hey, today we're going to achieve getting you out of this seat, because we have whoever else coming in to play that role. So basically, if I'm understanding it correctly, it seems as if it's like you're taking your existing accountability chart, and you're basically creating where you would rather be and placing that over it, and then seeing, okay, how are we going to get to that point? And it's just the in between that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like an org chart. So for a visual, it looks just like an org chart. The first time I did it, me and my VP of operations, we were in about 5 different seats. And so, and you think about all of the C-level seats, even though you're a law firm of 1, you still have someone who's in charge of finance, someone who's in charge of sales, marketing, technology, human resources. So you still have those duties and responsibilities. And so you want to make sure that those are all reflected, because what we want you to do is we want to see the horror of the reality of your current chart. And that's what happened to me, is I saw, oh my gosh, I'm in 5 positions. It's no wonder that the needle's not really moving and we're not getting anywhere. It's impossible. And so what one thing or a couple of tasks even can we take off the plate immediately and start moving out of those boxes?
Cool, awesome. So once you have that all set up, and once you know, okay, hey, we need to get you out of these certain boxes, right? And make them, know that, hey, this is not a demotion of any kind. It's just saying, hey, we got to play to your strengths, right? So what is like the process of going about finding who is like the right fit for these boxes?
Well, that's a good question. So I actually would kind of do these steps in tandem. And the reason is, what people will start to do is they'll say, well, I've got Polly the paralegal here. She could probably answer phones. I could put her name over here in finance. Well, if we don't know, and we haven't done any profile testing, we don't know what Polly's genius zone is. It might not even be paralegal. It might be client services. It might be something else. We also need to know what your genius zone is. And so I kind of do these steps in tandem.
Sorry, you're saying genius zone. What expand on that for just a hot minute there. I'm curious.
All right, so the genius zone is, I'm sure you've met that accounting guy who sits in his dark little corner, has his ear pods on all day, doesn't want to talk to anyone, just plugging away at numbers, loves it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So this is genius zone. The genius zone is your unique thing that makes you you, that drives you, that only you can do. And through some of the tools that we use, it can get dialed into even how detail-oriented you are. And I think this is the most important thing. You've seen DISC and you've seen all these different profile testing things, psychology testing things. They don't tell me if you're a process or a social person. They don't tell me if you are freewheeling and careless or you're methodical. They don't tell me if you're detail-oriented or you are not. They don't tell me if you're fast-paced or you're slow-paced. They don't tell me how much change and variety you like. My guess would be that you like a little bit of change and variety. And so finding out your genius zone is so liberating and so freeing. And so when I did mine, we realized that I don't have a good attention to detail. I don't have good follow-up and follow-through. I'm great at solving problems. I'm great at ideas. Really more of a visionary type person. I love strategy. I'm futuristic, whereas a lot of people in the population are more historical. So they're going to rely on what they've done or experienced in the past to make decisions today. Well, in some positions, that could be the downfall of a company. We sometimes need innovation. We need futuristic thinking. There are also positions where that kind of thinking is going to ruin the company. So we also need those people who are steady and they have historical and they're going based on their knowledge and expertise. So there's a spot for everyone. And so I'm just going on a total tangent here because it's so important. We're going to give out actually Discover Your Genius Zone. It's something that we do complimentary. So I'll share that for the end. Save it for the end. But yeah. I have a shortcut way to figure out your genius zone, and we'll help people do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We here at Spotlight, real quick, we have we do the Clifton Strengths, the Strength Finders, and my bottom 3. So I'm sure you're aware of this, but I just want to make sure the audience knows that it lists out like basically like your your strongest traits. Right, and it kind of goes to that list. So your bottom 3, and that's not necessarily saying you don't have them, but they're just kind of saying like they might not be your strongest traits, right? And my bottom 3 make me seem like the worst employee of all time because my bottom 3 are empathy, discipline, and communication. It's funny because like I personally believe that those can kind of vary, and you can kind of work on them. But sorry, just wanted to throw that out there that it's interesting to see that kind of information.
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage you to take the profile and Genius Zone Discovery that we're going to offer. Because what's really neat is, as you mentioned, there are degrees. And so our Genius Zone process actually shows to the degree of which this trait is relevant. And so
Ooh.
I've got one person on my team whose attention to detail is so high that I know anything I give her, it's probably going to take a while, but it will be flawless. It will be the most beautiful thing. It will be better than I ever could have dreamed of.
Awesome.
So every single time, because her attention to detail is so high, it's like almost to the point where it's neurotic. And I have to sometimes tell her, it's okay. What you've done is great. Be easy on yourself. And so I can tell to the degree. And so I encourage you to take it as well.
Yeah, I am very interested in. I might take you up on that offer, honestly. So now that we have the Genius Zone figured out, fleshed out, so how does that fit into? I can kind of imagine, but if you don't mind expanding on how that fits into the whole profile testing.
Well, absolutely. So first of all, we need to make sure that Larry, the lawyer, the owner of the company, is in the right spots. And a lot of times our lawyers are really good in court. They're great litigators. They're great maybe researchers, but the strategic, visionary, futuristic, so the CEO part of it is maybe not their jam, and that's okay. They can find ways to supplement that. And so the other thing is maybe they are very passionate about helping people, and maybe people is their highest need, is to connect with people. And so one of their lower needs is going to be to hold people accountable. So we see this a lot. I see this a lot in CEOs who are great at being the face of the company. They're great at being public, but they can't hold anyone accountable in their company. They want to make everybody happy. And what they need is a hitman. And so
Nice.
So it's just important to know these things, because maybe being in a managerial role for that person isn't a good fit. And so the other thing I like to say when you're looking at the accountability chart is that my cutthroat way of saying it, I would never tell an employee in this way, but it's whose head is going to roll when the things listed that you're accountable to aren't happening in a good way. So we mean it. We mean business when we say accountability. And so everyone's got someone they report to that's going to lead them. They're going to manage them. They're going to hold them accountable. And if they can't perform to that, their head's going to roll. And that goes for me too. And so I want to make sure I'm fighting to not be in a seat where I know I'm going to fail.
Yeah, I mean that's it's very insightful, because a lot of times we kind of evolve, right, as we learn new things and kind of figure out, hey, like I really enjoyed this aspect. And this other aspect I'm struggling with, and not necessarily saying, oh well, you just kind of have to figure that part out. But it's if correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of saying that, hey, if you are struggling with this, maybe we should assess whether or not that's within your strength, just so the failure doesn't continue, right? So you don't continue failing. We're not setting you up for failure.
Exactly, and it gets rid of that whole, well, Emily, you're really bad at details and you keep dropping the ball on this, that, and the other. I need you to step it up. Well, guess what? It's never going to happen. It's not who I am. And so it kind of gives the freedom to talk within our companies, even with vendors. I've had vendors do the Genius Zone too. I make sure they're aligned. But a good example came up today where they said, hey, Emily, someone in our community asked this question that I actually think would be best answered by you. Can you shoot a video so that we can use that as an answer? And I said, yes, shooting the video, answering the question, that's in my Genius Zone. Now, editing the video, uploading the video, finding the question, those are all details. I can't do details. So who can I delegate that portion of it to? And it's like, it gives me permission to be bad at that.
That's a great way of putting it. I like that a lot. It's I mean, because at the end of the day, we all have jobs to do, and this is, it's great to have an environment where everyone's kind of we have moments where we're just kind of enjoying our lives at work, right? You don't want to be sad at work, but at the same time, this is a business. Like you said before, it is a business. You need to make sure that, hey, let's put the right people in the right seats, for sure.
Yes, and if there's one message, it's give yourself permission to be bad at some stuff. It's okay. We can't all be good at everything. It's not going to happen.
That's going on the social media. I'm using that for part of the plug for this episode. That's awesome. Okay, so once you've gone through the profile testing, finding the right fit, what comes after? Like we talked about in the beginning, we said affording A players, right? So how does that come into it?
Oh, something that I looked at for internally was like, hey, we're providing, fractional receptionist services for lawyers. Well, why don't I use fractional experts in my own business for various roles? And so we started filling our C team with fractional executives. And my problem was this: I tried hiring people who are just a warm body with a pulse, who had the desire to do a different role, but they maybe weren't an A level COO before or technologist. They don't have that experience. So I wanted really good talent. I don't have the time, money, or my own expertise to train someone into it. And so, how do we get someone who is already doing the job, they're great at the job, and at a level that we can afford? I do fractional. I love fractional. I think any kind of role, if it's a videographer to your receptionist, I mean, every role, right down to even your CEO, everything can be fractional. And so, just in our own example of using a fractional C team instead of hiring in-house saves us $650, I believe, $56,000 a year in
Wow.
labor expense, making it something under 30% of the cost of hiring full-time for those roles. And it gets us the same level of talent as if we were hiring the absolute best.
Wow, and I think that's like the home run hitter right there for especially for our audience. Like I said before, at least in the marketing side, I've heard time and time again where our audience will say, "Hey, I'm not big law. I don't have I can't afford these A players and whatnot." And basically, what you're saying is, "Hey, there's another way. There's another way."
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something personal to me, but we hire all US based. And so, personal to me is I have found when I've tried to hire offshore or I've tried to hire in different areas, or maybe someone who is learning, they're in school for it. What I found is the results aren't getting me what I want. And so, what I'm looking for when I'm hiring is someone who has a deep level of knowledge and experience. And basically, they're learning more about our culture and values and what we do. That's the training that they need. For certain positions where they need to be highly skilled. And so I hire people who have experience, boots on the ground, local here, understand, local to the US, understand what the job entails. So when we're hiring paralegals to match with law firms, it's like, okay, we've got a paralegal who has worked in a family law firm. They have 10, 20 years of experience. It's not someone that we have to train as we're, moving along.
So when it comes to, you mentioned before, just quickly, you said something about culture. Does that play a big role? Is that would you put that in the the profile testing aspect, or is that something totally different and outside that scope?
So culture is totally different. We do definitely interview for it. We'll ask different questions to see how you align with our culture. So I think culture is everything. I knew how I wanted people to feel before I even had, filled out LLC paperwork. Like, I knew how frustrated I was as an employee and, my 20 years of working, everything that had gone wrong. And I knew exactly how I wanted people to feel when they did business with us as clients. And so I think I had the culture before I had the business. And
Nice.
it's something that we're well known for. So I actually just had one of my very first team members. He came back just in the last week. He needs to pick up some part-time work, and he was with us for years. He was with me through the hell days, the worst of the worst of the worst. And he was amazing. And I'm so Sean, if you're watching this, I love you. Thank you. And I can't believe we still talk. He still likes me.
There you go, Sean.
Because he was
There
with
you
me
go,
through the
Sean.
hard times. But he came back and we onboarded him, and he said, I can't believe with how big the company's grown that the culture hasn't changed. It's only gotten better. And so
Wow.
that was the biggest testimony. And so when looking at your company, I start with, how do you want people to feel?
Yeah. I mean, I think that plays a much bigger role, at least what was thought of like 20 plus years ago, right? Where it was just like, hey, just like, I think what you said before, getting a warm body in there, okay, can you spell? Cool. All right, sit down here, right? But now it's like we're realizing more and more how important culture plays, because it has an effect on your morale, and the morale has an effect on your production level, and just all these things that kind of domino effect, and just starting with culture. So that's very smart to kind of start that way.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And when you get it dialed in and then your values align with your culture, what's really cool is if you do accidentally hire a bad fit, they stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, there's nowhere to hide. We have a very big team at this point, and there is nowhere to hide. People stick out. It's like something isn't right here, and they're quickly, coached on out of here. It's very rare that we even have someone like that because we do interview for it. We'll ask questions to make sure there's an alignment with our values. But that's why it's so important to get your culture right.
Well, Emily, is there anything else that we might have missed? Anything that you kind of might have been like, oh wait, I forgot to say this that we didn't touch on?
Well, I have a whole checklist that we use. So one of our newer services is the fractional firm administrator. So this is kind of the office manager for the law firm. We have a checklist that they use, and it's got a different categories of, once we have all of these things, these are the things that will help the law firm run smoothly. And so our firm administrator will go through the checklist, and anything that needs to be created will be developed. So I want to give out that checklist to anyone. It's kind of too lengthy to go over super fast, but you can download it free. It's at backofficebetties.com/blueprint. And also in there is a link to Discover Your Genius Zone. Will help you do that as well. And that's free. It doesn't hurt to find out what your unique zone of genius is. And then my last little tidbit, this is something personally I've been working on, so I just kind of want to shout it from the rooftops. I've just been reading the Let Them book by Mel Robbins. It is really good, so I want to shout out the book. And then I've been kind of being like Paul Blart Mall Cop in my life. Observe and report. So what am I seeing? I'm like not fighting. I've been sitting back. I'm like, okay, let's not get defensive. And this is personal and professional. Let me just sit back and observe, knowing I can't change people. I probably won't change their mind. Let people be who they are, and then I can make decisions based on what aligns with the direction that I'm heading in. And I've had to do this personally lately. I've had to do it just today professionally. I'm observing, and does this align with the direction I want to go for this particular role? And what decisions do I need to make? And so what's really cool about the book, the two things I've been carrying is let other people be them, but let me be me. And that means, as the owner of this company, we have a direction and of where we want to be in 12 months. Let me be me. Let me go in my direction. You can't prohibit me from going there. And I'm going to let you be you, even if that means having to let go.
I love that because I'm all about like the whole, having different perspective on things. I think that really, and obviously if you're observing, it gives you the opportunity to maybe even see a different perspective of something that you thought. And yeah, I love that. Well, I will, the link that Emily provided there, I will have it in the podcast description, easily to, be able to click if you guys want to go check out Back Office Betties. But Emily, I appreciate you being on the podcast. This was fun.
My pleasure. Until next time.
Absolutely. All right, everyone listening, thank you for listening. If you could, please leave a review. It helps us out and it helps us grow. And we will see you next week.